Okay, it's 4:05 now. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope everybody is healthy and safe. So we at HSPP always believe that only through learning an employee can grow oneself competitive and become important for the organization. Keeping in this mind, like before, we have brought this virtual learning session for you. I, myself, A.K. Azad, Director, HSPP Consultants Limited, welcome you all to the webinar titled Virtual Leadership, Accepting the New Normal by Robert Brand. I would like to thank all the participants from different organizations who have registered with us for today's session. Now, some housekeeping rules before we start the session for today. I would request all of you to remain mute on and off both your audio and video so that there is no echo while we conduct the session. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, please leave them at the chat box. At the end of the session, our trainer will try to answer most of them. Now, I would request Mr. Qazi Samir Rahman, our newly onboarded managing partner, to say something before we start the session. Over to you, Samir.
Thanks, Azad. Good afternoon. Welcome to. And amid the challenges that the world is facing today, we are going through a phase that's going to change the way we interact, the way we work, and change our lives forever. One of my favorite quotes from Charles Darwin, it's not the selection, but the species that survives is the one that is able to adapt to or adjust best to the changing environment in it it's finds itself. We all need to adapt to change and adjust to the ever-changing uncertainty. We at HSPP are committed to bringing you a series of webinars and development programs that will help you to develop your skills in order for you to adapt to this ever-changing reality. One of our webinars is virtual leadership. Robert is an trainer with over 20 years of experience in this field. Hope that the next 1 hour will be a reward. Without further ado, I'll let Robert start. Take care and stay safe. Robert, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to check that everybody has their sound off. I was hearing some feedback. I don't know if that was you, but I still hear somebody else, your sound on. So if you can off, that'd be great. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. Okay, so virtual leadership, the new normal. Like I said, was saying, this is a very strange time we're all going through as training in life, in real life, but hopefully you'll be able to get a lot from it and it'll be enjoyable, you know. Training has to be interesting, has to be relevant, has to be meaningful. You should be able to use it right away. Okay, so a little bit about me. Everybody okay? Sounds still okay? Everybody? Yes? No? Oh, you can't hear anything. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, good, great. So we can hear, excellent. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Why is it, okay, let's try this. Here we go. Okay, so I have a lot of experience leading in all sorts of sectors in IT. I developed a program for about 3 years. I've worked in hospitality. It was hotel manager, manufacturing as a factory manager. So I've had a lot of different experiences, which gives me an understanding of what it is to lead a team. My main passion is in teaching and training. And so even though I was managing and I had a lot of work experience, I kept coming back to training. And all those icons you see, those logos, have been my customer. I have certifications and degrees below on that certificate. Project management professional, for example, which is the top project management certificate in the world. I have teaching certificates and training certificates. Anyway, I'm very happy that you're all here, and I hope you enjoy my session. Just one more thing about me. I also have 1,500 hours of teaching experience online and 500 hours coaching online teachers, as well as 3 years experience managing virtual teams. I had a team in India. It was an online development, and I had a team in team members, I should say, in India, team members in the Ukraine, and I was living in Vancouver, Canada. It's very challenging. There's lots of things, especially when you have teams all over the world. That's another problem, which I'm not going to address per se in this workshop, but I am going to address what it is like to have a virtual team. Okay, workshop objectives. First, we're going to talk about the first rule of leadership. Because of the COVID-19 crisis, I'm going to talk about crisis, what it is to be dealing with the crisis and to lead through crisis. Leadership styles. There are many different styles. I'm going to focus on 4 styles that would be good in this type of situation, that would help people and that make your team more productive. Communication, very, very important. Communication is key, and we'll get to that. And then motivating teams. If we have time, we'll get to motivating teams. We started a little late, and depending on how many questions there are and situations, we'll see if we get through it all. At this point, is there anybody have a question? Just type it in the chat. If you have a question, just type it in. Nothing? Okay, moving on. So the first rule of leadership is take responsibility. You have to be able to take responsibility to lead a team. You know, you can't blame it on somebody else. It always comes back to you. If your team does really well, you give credit to the team. And if the team is doing badly, it's your fault, right? If you have this mindset, then you are able to develop the team properly and build from there. A leader cannot say, hey, that's not my fault. It's that guy or that guy, right? A leader has to be able to say, okay, that's on me. I didn't train them well enough. I didn't explain it well enough. I didn't look after them well enough, whatever the situation. Okay. Any comments? Okay. While we are going, if you have any questions, just type it down. Okay. I'll keep looking down there. Okay. Okay. So here we go. All right. So while we go through this, I have little video clips to keep it more interesting and to kind of repeat what I say or to add to what I say, really. This is Simon Sinek. I don't know if you know this man. He's a very good speaker, and he's written many books on management and kind of being like a leader. And anyway, let's have a listen to him.
Take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit, when you also take accountability.
Okay. Like he says, you can take credit, but you also got to take accountability. Okay, so now we go on. Let's get to crisis management. Okay. Crisis is very stressful for people. And crisis, of course, we have a global crisis, but a crisis can happen just in your company. And people become very emotional. People get very upset. And people are confused, not quite sure what to do next. So being a good leader in this situation is very important. So what is a crisis? A crisis is any event that threatens a group, a person, or a business. What's interesting is I like the way the Chinese write crisis. The character below is the meaning. When you write crisis in Chinese, you write those two characters. The one on the left is danger, but the one on the right is opportunity. Okay, there's a question is, would you give an example of accountability? Yes, I can. Let's say your team is doing a project and the project doesn't go well. Sorry, say that again. Okay. So if the project goes badly, and let's say one of your team members, made a mistake, you have to own that, right? So let's say you have a boss above you. You're not the owner of the company, or let's say you're the owner of the company and you have a customer. You have to own that mistake. You have to say, okay, sorry, my team, we made a mistake. We'll have to take care of that. You can't blame others. You gotta be able to say, okay, this person made a mistake. What can we do so that mistake never happens again? You're going to talk to that person. You're going to say, but there was a famous saying by an American president, Harry S. Truman, and he had a sign on his desk that said, the buck stops here. The dollar stops here. In other words, he takes responsibility for everything, right? As a leader, you have to take responsibility for your team's actions, your team's mistakes. You can't just start blaming people, because then there's no growth, right? Then it's like, oh, it's not my fault. But as a leader, it is your fault, because maybe you didn't train him well enough. Maybe you didn't explain the situation better. Maybe you didn't look after him well enough, right? Even in a classroom situation, when I'm teaching something, when a person doesn't understand something, I take responsibility for that. What can I do next time so that my students understand better, right? Does that kind of answer that accountability? Okay, good. Thanks, Anwar. And yes, sometimes crisis might be an opportunity. In fact, all crises are opportunities, right? If you think about it, right now, we're really hurt. Most businesses around the world are hurt. But there might be an opportunity in this chaos, in this crisis, for your business, to find a niche or to find an angle that works for you, right? For example, training. It might turn out for me that in the future, I get more business through online training than I do in classroom training. So that's what an opportunity is. Yeah. Any other questions? Good. We'll keep going. Okay. So leadership in a crisis. There's a lot of things. If you go online, you look at like, what should you do in a crisis? I focused on 4 things. Lead by example. As a leader, you want to be calm, you want to be positive, you want to focus on routines and schedules, you want to keep the thing moving, right? You don't want to go, oh my God, what's going on? Oh, right? You as a leader have to stay calm and focused so that the rest of your team are also calm, right? Because everybody's negative right now. Everybody's like, oh, what's going to go on? You know, wow, right? So you as a leader have to remain positive and say, don't worry, we'll get through this. We'll take care of it. The other thing is you need to communicate. You need to communicate a lot, right? Most leaders have to communicate, okay? Most leaders have to communicate a lot. That's, in fact, I'll show this later in a slide, 75 to 90% of a leader's job is communicating. We have emails, meetings, discussions, feedback, reports. All of that is communication, but not too much, right? You don't want to keep phoning people all the time. Hey, have you done that yet? Hey, how about you now, right? You want to communicate, stay in touch. You want to be honest in your communication. You want to share whatever information you have. You might see this in what's happening in the United States right now with this huge crisis, what they're having with the protests. In the beginning, there was very little communication between the police departments and the protesters. And it exploded, right? And you see this also, for example, with COVID. At the beginning, there was very little good communication from the WHO and from China, right? And so in a crisis situation, it's really important to be honest with your communication. If you don't know, say you don't know, okay? Share whatever information you have that's relevant and address whatever issues there are. Be proactive in addressing, because everybody's thinking it, right? What's going to happen next? How long will this be? What should we do, right? So you want to address all those issues. You want to listen. Okay? We're going to talk more about listening a little later. Listening is really, really important. Get input from your team. Your team has ideas. In this situation, some of your team members may be way better at, let's say, IT or online communications or whatever the situation is. And so listen to them. They have ideas. It respects them, which motivates them if you listen, okay? You want to engage them. And you want to get feedback, right? Again, people are really confused. They don't know what's going on. And very often, by the way, all of these things is relevant in any situation, right? I mean, these are things any leader should do in any situation, but especially with virtual teams and especially in a crisis. So you want to give them feedback. You want to recognize if they're doing a good job, right? You want to tell them, you want to acknowledge their effort. And you want also, if they're doing something bad, you want to let them know that they're doing something bad. I had one customer, one student, participant, who said she was so angry at her colleague because she kept on making the same mistake. And I asked her, well, did you let her know that she was making a mistake? No, she didn't let her know. Well, how does she know that she's making a mistake? You've got to let them know, right? So this is difficult. People can get offended if you give them, people get hurt. Can be. So you want to be nice about it. And I'm going to talk more about feedback a little later, okay? Any comments? Let me know. Okay, so here's another video. Let's listen to this one.
First, lead by example. Your team will follow your cues, so remain calm and upbeat. Encourage employees.
Oh, sorry, I started
to continue to do their best
I
work.
can't type while I...
Stick to your usual routine and schedule. If your department normally meets for a status review on Tuesday mornings, keep that date and time on the calendar. Second, communicate. Your communication skills as a manager are never more important than when the going is rough. Explain the circumstances to the best of your knowledge. Be honest and forthright and share what you know. This will show employees you are sensitive to their need for information and have their best interests at heart. Address issues as they arise and update your staff regularly as new developments occur. This is a situation where keeping employees well informed is of utmost importance. Have you heard the adage that talking is silver and listening is gold? Our third tip is to remember that being a good listener is every bit as important as sharing information. Employees need to feel that they are being heard, especially in times of crisis, so sharpen your active listening skills. Give your undivided attention to any employee coming to speak with you. Try to understand his or her perspective. Maintain an open door policy that lets your team know you're approachable. Consider holding town hall style meetings that allow management to address and hear from all employees at once. That way, no one feels left in the dark. And acting on questions raised in these meetings will let employees know they're still valued and their concerns matter. Fourth, don't hesitate to ask your employees to help with the crisis. Have teams brainstorm solutions to different problems. The collaboration will engage employees at a time when their bonds to the organization may be strained. Plus, your employees might save the day with innovative ideas that management hasn't considered. Which leads us directly to our last tip. Acknowledge hard work and jobs well done. Employees who go above and beyond during times of adversity should be publicly recognized and rewarded monetarily if possible. Even token gifts have proven to be a powerful motivator and a way to keep up morale.
Okay, so any comments on that? So there's a question from Farah. Feedback can be criticism as well. Yes, it can. But let's not talk about criticism, because criticism has such a negative connotation, right? Say positive criticism, if you know what I mean. It's like they're doing something wrong, but you want to help them become better. So it's not like, hey, you're doing a bad job. It's sort of like, hey, have you tried doing this? I've noticed that you've done it. Now, if it is actually a bad job, you want to address that, okay? And if it's really a bad job, you want to start coaching them. And coaching is different from training, and we're not covering that in this short webinar. I do have a workshop on coaching. Yes, exactly. Feedback for improvement in a positive way. Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue. So there is also crisis management. So we've talked about, leading, the 4 key points in leading. By the way, these videos, I edit them so that they're short and focused on what I want these videos to say. But we want to identify potential risks. When there's a crisis, what are the risks? What are the problems? You want to try to identify that. And that's a whole thing in itself, right? Risk management is quite difficult, but there are clear, easy ways to do it. I have a workshop on that, and you can address what they are, and then you can start planning how to deal with those problems, right? And when you start dealing with the problems, you want to be proactive, not reactive, right? You want to stay ahead of the problem. If you know the problem is coming, what are we going to do about it? And do it first. You want to make priorities. There's so much going on. What do show you the tool, which is a very interesting tool. It's called an importance urgency tool. I don't know if you've heard of that tool. It's very easy to be able to focus your mind on what needs to be done first. Okay, again, share information, build trust, focus on results, not activities, right? when people are working from home, when people are working autonomously, you want to trust them. You want them to trust you, but you also want to trust them. You want to give them trust, at least benefit of the doubt at first. And you want to focus on results, right? Doesn't matter how they do it. Doesn't matter if they're in their pajamas and they're working at 2 in the morning, as long as they get the result. Right? And also you want to empathize, empathizing with their issues, right? Everybody has issues. And again, by building trust, by listening to them, by empathizing with their issues, they'll start to trust you more. And if you care about them, they'll care about you. Any comments or questions at this point? No? Okay. We're going to focus more on priorities, and we're going to focus on empathizing. We'll do that a little later. Okay. Here's the urgency importance matrix. So what we have here is we have on the left, we have important and urgent. So that's the green box. Do. That's what you want to do, right? It's important and it's urgent. So that's what you do now. If it's important and it's not urgent, you want to plan it. You want to take time and plan it so you do it well. If it's not important, but it's urgent, you want to delegate it. You want to give it to one of your team members to do it for you. Okay? And if it's not urgent and not important, eliminate it. Okay? So this is called an urgent important matrix. It's also called the Eisenhower matrix because General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower used this a lot. What I would like you to do now is, I hope you have a piece of paper and a pen next to you. I want you to draw out this matrix for me so that you remember how to do that matrix, right? So I want you to do that now. Please let me know when you're done. Zahid, where did you hear that? Do, plan, delegate, eliminate. Okay. Why only 1% eliminate? I think what happens is it depends on what the situation is. You know, it depends on what you put on your list. Depends on what you're thinking about, right? If you're thinking about a lot of unimportant things, then, which are not urgent, I would just eliminate them all, right? Focus on what's important and urgent. Focus on what's important, right? What's not important and not urgent you should not be focusing on at this time, especially during a crisis. Sometimes we have to do unnecessary work. Okay, well, unnecessary means you don't have to do it, right? It's not necessary. So, yeah, I think it probably is different for everybody, guys. It comes up, you know, what you put in that box, right? If it's in a non-important, not urgent box, then it's not necessary to do, right? If they need to be done and it's not that important, it's not urgent, delegate it, right? Give it to somebody else. You're a leader. You shouldn't be doing that, especially in a crisis. Okay? Okay, so I hope you've all written it down. Let's keep going. Yeah, we won't do this. We'll keep moving. Yes, exactly, Nafis. It cannot be made fixed. This percentage will depend on the situation. I totally agree with you. It's up to you, whatever you're thinking of, right? You might be thinking a lot of stuff that you shouldn't be thinking of. And so this matrix helps you focus on what you should be focusing on, right? What you should be doing. Okay? And that's this tool. That's how you use this tool, right? Okay. So we're coming to 6 leadership styles. So Daniel Goleman wrote a book on 6 leadership styles. So 6 leadership styles that are useful in certain situations. I am going to only focus on 4 right now, which are very positive, motivating styles. Okay. I'll just mention the first style that I'm not going to be talking about is authoritarian style or autocratic style. Most people fall into that style. I'm not going to deal with it. In my full leadership course, I will talk about that, but not now. So there's 6 styles that you can use with your team for various reasons. And let me explain them to you. First is visionary. Visionary is very important. Whenever there's a new company, a new project, or something new. And of course, during a crisis, there'll always be something new because whatever happened before that caused the crisis is going to change everything, right? So, yeah, Zahid, if you plan properly, it'll never be urgent. Exactly. But unfortunately, things happen like crises, like COVID-19. And so things become urgent, right? We can never see the future. We don't know what's coming. But we can plan. We can plan as much as we can, and that's always good. Anyway, visionary. Visionary is somebody like Stephen Jobs, right? He had this idea, where do we want to go, right? And it's very important to get everybody on board, right? You want to go into this new direction. You're making some changes to your company. You have a new project, something like that. You want the people to understand where you want to go with this project. What's this project supposed to achieve? What are the changes in your company supposed to achieve? Where are you going with this? And if you can get people on board, it's going to be much smoother, right? Getting those people on board is not easy. So you have to try to paint the right picture for them, to make it attractive for them. Right? So that's visionary. So a visionary is very powerful in times of change. This is highly motivating. People really like it. Okay, we have democratic. Democratic leader is somebody who says, what do you think? I believe in 2 heads are better than 1. So democratic is one of my natural leadership styles. I bring people, I ask them questions, and I know that, well, I don't know Bangladesh, but I live in Thailand, and maybe Bangladesh is also hierarchical. Thailand is very hierarchical. And, you know, in Thailand, kids listen to their parents. They don't talk back. When they go to school, they listen to their teachers. They don't talk back. When they go and have their job, they listen to their boss. They don't talk back. And what happens is, because of this culture, this society, it's very hard to get people to give you opinions, to give you input. So you have to get them to trust you. You have to get people to believe in you. Okay? I give you one story. Factory manager, and every week I would have meetings and with all my section heads, and I would ask them in every meeting, do you have any ideas, any comments, any suggestions, anything? No, nothing, no. Okay. As we went along, one day, one of my section heads said, listen, if we do this, I think it might work faster and it's actually will be better. So I said, well, okay. I didn't know. I would never have thought about that. Maybe I would have. After a long time, I might have known. But he worked with this equipment all the time. And so I asked the maintenance guy, is it possible? Can we make this equipment go faster? Yes. So we tried, and it worked. And I went, hey, thank you so much. Great, fantastic. I'm going to buy you a drink. I'll buy you a meal. Thank you so much. It's wonderful, right? Now, if it didn't work, I would have still thanked him a lot, right? I would still thank you so much for suggesting this. It didn't work, but you tried. Anyway, as we were walking down the hallway, he says to me, nobody's ever asked me. Nobody's ever listened to me. Right? And what do you think? Do you think he gave me your ideas in the future? Of course he did, because he trusted me now. He knew that I listened to him, right? So, for example, if you have a lot of trucks, right, and you listen to your truck driver about your trucks. He drives that truck every day. So if he has a suggestion, listen to him. Doesn't mean you have to agree with him. You still make the decision, right? You're still the leader, but it gets more ideas, right? Here's a little video that talks about democratic style leadership.
Democratic leaders take a collaborative approach with their followers. Even though democratic leaders still have a position of power and still make many of the big decisions, they prefer to get feedback and input from followers to help leaders shape those decisions.
Sorry, guys.
They like to listen to a range of opinions to make sure they're hearing about all the good options. They have what you call a two heads are better than one philosophy. A leader might even test ideas with followers and say, hey, here's what I was thinking of doing. What do you think? Or I've been hearing negative feedback about this external vendor we've been using. What has been your experience with this vendor? In cases like these, the leader may still make the ultimate decision. But at other times, democratic leaders may delegate power to followers when they can, especially when those decisions directly influence the followers' jobs. This is called a decentralized approach to power and authority that contrasts with the centralized approach of autocratic leaders. In other words, as the official leader, a democratic leader still has the right to make decisions, just like the autocratic leader, but instead delegates those decisions and provides the freedom to followers to make the best choices possible. So let's say a department, a team, is about to purchase new computers. A democratic leader would likely give some basic criteria on cost or compatibility, but then delegate the final decision, and each follower would purchase their own computer. I'd like to make an important point about this. If a decision goes badly, the democratic leader is not off the hook. They are still responsible for the outcomes and for the team decisions.
Okay. So any comments or questions about democratic leadership style at the moment? It's a very positive style, very powerful style. And of course, if you are asking opinions, don't give your opinion first, right? Give your opinion last, right? Because you always make the decision. So you don't want to say, hey, I want to paint the walls. I want to paint it yellow. What do you think? They're going to go, oh, yeah, yellow, right? You always got to give your opinion last. Any comments, questions? No? All right, we'll continue. Now, here's also a very powerful style. By the way, these leadership styles are called transformative styles. They focus on the person, and they focus on transforming them into becoming better people, right? In which type of organization democracy leadership is fruitful? I believe in all types of organizations. In fact, I'm going to show you a video, Absalam, that it's about the military. And, oh, sorry, that's about affiliative. I'm jumping ahead. Democracy, yes, democratic leadership is a more time-consuming process. So if it's really in a crisis mode, if you're really panicking, like right now, you probably don't have time. Like if you need for example, if you need to, things are going wrong and you have to send packages to your customer tonight, right? And things are going wrong. You don't have time necessarily to start asking everybody's opinion. So you might at that point go, okay, do this, do that, get things done, right? But in the long term, in processes, in when you're planning, when you're strategizing, it's really good idea to get your team input, right? To get the opinion from your team. But yes, if it's kind of a panic situation, you're in a situation which is time constraint and things got to get done now. That's probably not, you're not going to use that style. You're going to use the authoritarian style, which we're not talking about today, or the pace setting style, which is also we're not talking about today. Okay? But I believe this crisis, what we're dealing with now, is not a huge time constraint. Like we're kind of stuck in our houses. This thing is going to play itself out. It's going to take time. So during this time, even though it is a crisis, we have kind of time to think about stuff, right? Maybe not everything, but what are we going to do what strategy are we going to use in the future? How are we going to dig ourselves out of this mess? And that's when democratic style is very powerful. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so now we're talking about affiliative style. Affiliative is all about, sorry, somebody, okay. Just got a text message or a chat message. Okay. So affiliative is about caring about your people, right? Making your people feel good, making you feel listened to, respected, that they matter. And this style is also very time consuming. It takes time. Let me give you an example. In Thailand, people go to all sorts of, like when people get married, the whole community goes to the wedding, right? If somebody, a funeral, everybody, the whole community goes to the funeral. In Canada, only the close family goes. But in Thailand, everybody goes. So when I was when I was managing people, when I was leading people, when there was one of these occasions, I would go to these very important events because they felt like I cared about them. I would go to these private events, it's not during work time. Also, when one of my team members, and when I was a factory member, I had a team of 120 people. And if somebody was in the hospital, I went to visit them. And in fact, there's this one story I'd like to share with you. In Thailand, there's a law that if you don't show up for 3 days, you don't call, you don't email, you're automatically fired. Anyway, there's this one worker who was very good. And she wasn't around. And I'm like, where is she? I kept asking people, where is she? Where's Gal? Nobody knew. So after 3 days, so she was already officially fired. One of my team members said, she's in the hospital. So I went down to the hospital and she was black and blue. She was beaten up by her boyfriend. So bad that after 3 days, she was still in the hospital. It was very sad situation. And she was very embarrassed, of course, And so I went to her, I had a basket of fruit and some, soy milk or whatever. And I said to her, whenever you're ready, so, when you're not black and blue anymore, so it's not embarrassing anymore, whenever you're ready, come back to work. and you have a job. And she did. After, like, I don't know, when she wasn't Black and Blue anymore, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. And she was an excellent worker, right? She really, like, she would do anything for me. She was so thankful, right? And that's an affiliative style leadership, right? Where you show that you care about them. And therefore, they care about you. Here's a question. Culture is the key to democratic leadership. Yeah, it is. But even though I'm in a culture which is not used to democratic leadership, Thailand, I used it. It takes more time. It's more difficult because you have to really earn people's trust before they will share their ideas. But you can just think simply, like for example, in the video, it says, "What do you think?" Or I've heard news that this customer is very difficult, or that this supplier is always late. What's your experience with the supplier, or what's your opinion of the customer, right? So it does. So democratic style can be used that way too, just to hear out your people, and your people will feel respected, and therefore they will be more committed to a job. Also, if you, let's say, ask their opinion and you use their opinion, those people are going to be much more committed to the project because it's their idea, right? So although culture does affect democratic leadership style, I think you can use it in any culture, right? It's up to the leader to use it, right? Does that make sense? Maido? Yeah? Okay, anyway, let's talk about affiliative. Let's go further. I have a couple of video clips for you. Let's have a look. And here we have
Godbolt, take your boots off. Go on. Everybody, take your boots off. Everybody. Socks, too. I want you to draw fresh socks from supply. Keep your feet dusted with powder. Everybody check each other's feet like Godbolt and me.
Okay, so we see here, there's a soldier in a very autocratic system, the military, who is showing, you know, that he cares about his team, right? And by showing that he cares about his team, about the welfare of his team will start to care about him. And therefore, you're dealing not from fear. Bosses very often deal from fear, right? You don't want to deal from fear. It's a very, very bad motivational technique. Now, these guys start to like him. And so they will be able to do more for him, right? Here's another example.
Lead guitar, Zack Attack. Take a seat. On bass, Posh Spice. On keyboards, Mr. Cool. And on drums, Spazzy McGee. Okay, Blondie, Braceface, you're singing backup. All right, tough guy, shortstop, Fancy Pants, get over here. You guys are on security detail. Your job is to make sure no one outside this room knows what we're doing in here. The future of the band depends on you. Okay, your first mission? Soundproofing this room. Get on it.
Can I be the band stylist instead?
Of course you can, Fancy Pants. Okay. Carrot Top, Roadrunner, Turkey Sub. We are gonna have a lot of equipment. We're talking amps, electric guitars, maybe even lasers, and smoke machines. Now your job is to master the transportation and operation of this technology. Seriously, without a first-rate roadie crew, we'll never have a psychedelic show. And I can't live with that, okay? I'm counting on you. Get going. Go. All right. You three, groupies. And your job is simple. Just worship the band. And you're gonna be making hats, you're gonna be making t-shirts, all kinds of merchandise, which leads me to your first assignment, naming the band. All right, sit down.
Okay, so here what he did was he made, he made everybody in the team feel that they were important. Right? Everybody was important to the whole project. Right? You had of course, the stars of the project were the band members, but everybody throughout was important. And not only did he do that, he listened to their strengths. He thought about what are their strengths, right? You had the best musicians became the band members, but he thought about what are the strengths of each of the team members, and he tried to give them a job that they were well suited for. In fact, one of them, Fancy Pants, came to him and said, "No, I don't want to be security. I want to be the stylist." Right? And he went, "Oh, okay, be the stylist," because that's what Fancy Pants wanted to do. Oh, okay. I don't give my PowerPoints by I give PDF files of my presentation. I don't give my PowerPoint. And if I give PDF, you won't get the videos. So that's my intellectual property. And if I give you the PowerPoint, then you can use it to teach, right? So I'd rather not do that. Sorry about that. All of the videos that I got are on YouTube, by the way. So everything I got, I imported, I edited them, I put them into the PowerPoint, okay? And so I'm sorry about that. So, okay. So the sound is not clear, so Sakeb suggested that you use a headphone. Also, there was another question. No. Okay. So that's an affiliative style leadership. Very powerful. Again, takes time, takes a lot of energy and effort, but you get the best from your team, right? You show that you care and they'll care about you. And also, like what the teacher did here, Jack Black, he looked at what are the strengths of each of his team members and he gave an appropriate job, okay? So we are actually taking a lot of time, so I'm gonna move forward a little bit. Another very powerful is coaching. Coaching is trying to get people to become better, right? Coaching is not just telling people to do something, but telling them to do it in a way that is more efficient. So you look at your team members, they might do something in a slow way, you give them, and you take the time to teach them to do it in a better way. Again, you get a stronger team out of it. And people feel respected and listened to, that they're cared about. And in the end, your team becomes stronger. So it's a very powerful leadership style as well. Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric for a long time. And General Electric in those days was a very big company in the United States. He came up with this saying, before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. But when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. Okay. So just type in the chat, what's a good leadership style for developing loyalty and trust? Anybody? 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 Okay, it's the affiliative style leadership. Okay? Affiliative is very good for building loyalty and trust. What about getting team members' input and commitment? What's a good leadership style for that? Anybody? 4, 3, 2. Okay, it's democratic. Okay, democratic gets members' input. Right, they're going to give opinions and ideas. And they'll be committed, more committed. Getting a team engagement for new projects. What's good for that? I don't know what you mean by number here. I don't know what everybody's writing numbers. I would like to hear democratic or affiliative or visionary or coaching. Okay. Okay. So very good. Number 2 is democratic. Very good. Number 3, getting engagement for new projects. New key here is new projects. Anybody? Okay, so for new projects, it would be visionary. Yeah, very good. Ahmad, very good. Visionary. A, excellent. Okay, increasing team skills and knowledge would be yes, exactly. It does. Coach, very good, Hassan. Number 4 is coach, yes. I agree with you. Most people have 2 or 3 styles that they use naturally. The 6 leadership styles that Daniel Goleman wrote about, he said they're all appropriate in certain situations, right? In certain situations, all of those styles are appropriate. So it does depend on the situation. I totally agree with you. And finally, number 5 is solving conflicts and reducing stress. What's a good one for that? Anybody? Again, it's affiliative. So I put that one in twice. So affiliative is very powerful. It does take a lot of time because you have to, you know, like I did, go to the hospital right after work. So I'm working and all that kind of stuff, you know, go to these events. That takes more time, but in the long term, it will be fruitful. Okay, let's talk about EQ and IQ. I don't know if you know what EQ is. IQ is the brain, right? IQ is the brain, how smart you are. But EQ is about, it's called emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. Exactly, very good. It's about the heart, right? It's about being able to communicate better with people. And you know, EQ is a higher, it's more important for success than IQ. There are many people who have a high IQ, but they're not able to work in teams, they're not able to work with people, and so they're not successful, right? You might have anger problems or whatever. EQ is a higher measurement of success. More like successful people generally have a higher EQ than others. Okay. Let's go. EQ are abilities such as identifying emotions, control, you know, when you're talking to somebody, do you see if they're bored or nervous or happy, right? Are you able to identify emotions in other people? Controlling your emotions. For example, do you control your anger or your anxiety? It's amazing how many of my participants say they have issues with anger. And you can control it, right? You control anxiety. There are techniques that you can do to control it. We're not going to get into that here because it's a whole workshop in itself. But it's, you know, that's what EQ is, being able to control your emotions. Understanding how others feel. Empathy, very, very, very important. Empathy is to be able to understand how others feel. Why do they feel this way? Well, I'll talk more about that in a second. Using emotions for social communication and relating to others. Okay, so EQ basically is divided into 4 sections. Recognition, we have self-awareness. Are you emotional self-aware? You see yourself when you're anxious or when you're upset or whatever. Are you confident? Can you assess yourself accurately? Okay. Then there's social awareness. Again, we have the word empathy, and we're going to talk more about it in a second. Organizational awareness. Are you able to go into an organization and kind of see who's the leader, who's, you know, who does what, just by sensing what's going on? What about an environment? When you walk into a room, you might be in a really good mood, and you walk into a room and you kind of go, oh, wait a minute. It feels really strange here. Like there's something's going on, right? So that sense of being to pick up in the environment or in organization is social awareness. Then we have self-management. Are you trustworthy? You can build trustworthy, right? You can regulate that. If you do what you say you're going to do, if you speak the truth, then you become trustworthy. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, and you don't speak the truth, then you're not trustworthy. Then people will go, hey, yeah, he lies a lot. Don't listen to him, you know. And don't give him the project because he's always failing, right? Conscientious, doing the right thing, right? Even when nobody's watching, right? Doing the right thing, that's being conscientious. Adaptable, very powerful. Leaders need to be adaptable, right? Especially in situations where everything is upside down, like COVID-19. You got to be able to like switch gears and, you know, sidestep problems, right? Adaptable, motivated. Are you a motivated person? Commitment. Right? These are things that are about self-management. And then, of course, social skills are for leaders. You know, leadership. Are you able to influence people? Are you able to work together with other people, collaborate? Are you able to develop, you know, coach them? Are you able to motivate them? Right? So these are all EQ things. Let's go to the next slide. So the qualities of empathizing are perspective taking. Are you able to take the perspective of the person you're dealing with? Not judging them, right? If you judge them, you're not empathizing, right? Recognizing their emotions and communicating in the same emotion as they are in, right? So if they're really down, you can, you know, if you're like, hey, don't worry about it, everything will be okay, you're not empathizing with that person. You empathize with that person if you kind of feel what they're feeling. You're feeling with others. Let's go to the next slide. There's another video. Please let me know if there's any question about this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So, I bring it especially, I thought that very relevant because we're going through such emotional times right now, and there's a lot of people in trouble. So empathizing is a very powerful thing. Any comments? No? Okay, let's keep going. So let's review a little bit, talking about silver linings and saying at least, right? You don't want to empathize like that because that's not empathy, you know? You don't want to look at the good. And men, and most of us are men here, we like to find solutions. We like to give advice, right? Women are better at just sharing emotion. And very often, people just want to be listened to. They don't want advice. In fact, I've had situations where I know what I need to do. I just need to rant and offload with a friend, right? So I don't want advice. I just want somebody to listen to me. And empathy leads to connection. Okay. Let's come to communication. All right, communication is so important. Like I said earlier, 75 to 90% of time, leaders spend about 75 to 90% of their time on communication. And virtual teams need to stay in constant contact, especially because you don't have that feeling like people around you as you are in an office. You're at home alone. So you need that contact constantly. You need regular video meetings and audio calls, and I explained why. Emails and text messaging, chat messaging is not enough. There's a lot of faults for that. You want to share information. People don't know what's going on, so you want to share as much as you can, right? And you want to build trust. Remember, when people are online, they're more nervous about sharing information because text can be copied and pasted out of context. And so when you're standing around the water cooler sharing information or having lunch together sharing information, you're more able to just speak normally. So you want to build that trust so that you are able to speak candidly, that you are able to text and, without thinking too much. Okay, let's, so what kind of communication should be using? Tools and procedures. So for example, text and email are not the same. People are much lazier in text, and text should only be used for what a friend of mine calls ping pong communication, right? Where you are, I'm here. Are you going to tomorrow? Yes. Are you? No, right? Click, 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 very fast. But as soon as it becomes more detailed, you probably want to send an email. Also, with emails, you're able to have subject lines. If you put a good subject line, so it's very clear what the email is about, and you can attach things. So you can go back to it later. You can start threads, so people can add to the original email. Whereas text, you can't do that. It's much more, oh, that person said something. Where is it? You have to scroll up. It's very complicated, right? And people with texting just use 2 fingers usually, right? Or a couple of fingers. And so they're lazy. They don't want to write all that information. Okay? So there's a lot of misunderstanding. You want to use audio calls when appropriate. Again, you don't want to call somebody all the time, but you want to check in once in a while and talk to them. Especially, let's say, an email, you want to send an email, but it's really complicated. It's a kind of a complicated concept. Do an audio call.
মনের কষ্ট আছে ভয় বেশি বেশি এই কারণে এরকম লাগতেছে চোখ কালো হয়ে গেছে দেখছেন কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যে টেনশন করছে কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যে
Okay, so the question is, if the leader spends 80 to 90% of their time on communication, is she then able to execute his or her task properly? Yes, because you're a leader, you should be delegating. You should be telling people what to do. You should be, you have a team working for you. So when you're working on reports, when you're meeting with people, when you're sending emails, when you're reading emails, when you're coaching somebody, when you are, all of that is communication, right? So, yeah, you should be doing your tasks, right? A good leader should not be doing everything themselves, should not do all the operations themselves. A good leader should be getting other people to do it. I had that mistake when I was younger. I didn't get that. I thought that I was showing initiative, or that I was, I don't want to waste time telling somebody else what to do, so I'll just do it myself. That's not a good strategy for a leader. A leader should be getting other people to do it and training other people to do it well, right? Ideally, a leader should not be doing any tasks other than leading, if you know what I mean. Okay. The time percentage of communication and planning will be what? Well, communication, like I said, is like 75 to 90%. Planning, depending on what you're doing, for most projects, planning is between 25 and 30% of the project. You should be planning the project very well before you start executing it. But that's, I have 2 20-hour courses on project management, and that's something else, okay? Okay, thanks for the questions, by the way. That's very good. So what information to share? Are you going to share updates, problems, achievements, right? Don't just focus on the achievements or quick updates. Also share problems, right? Because again, 2 heads are better than 1. And virtual meetings are very important, right? Because we want to be able to see somebody's face, okay? While you have virtual meetings, you want to talk about technical requirements. For example, many of you have noticed that if you do a meeting like this, or you take a workshop, probably want to have headphones, right? And maybe even a microphone. Like this has a microphone built into it. It's just better, because otherwise you have all that echoing and feedback, and it becomes very noisy. Also, you want to talk about behavior. Are you going to be able to allow people drinking? Of course. But what about eating candies? Because if you unwrap a candy, it becomes very noisy, right? It's very distracting, right? So you want to talk about behavior. You want to talk about dress code, right? Wear a shirt, for example, right? Nice shirt or whatever, or not, doesn't matter. You don't care, everybody can be naked, that's fine for you. But it's up to you to decide as a team or as a leader what is appropriate. And ties are probably not appropriate when you're working from home, unless you're dealing with a customer, right? But that's, again, up to the culture of the company. And you want to schedule regular meetings. You want to schedule them. And you want to have a time limit. Probably an hour, maximum 2 hours for a meeting, right? I prefer 1-hour meetings, and then having more often than have a really long meeting. And especially online, it becomes very tiring. Okay? Oh, sorry. Oop. Where are we? Okay. So with virtual team meetings, you want to keep everybody on track and in contact. Why do you do it? Because you can see each other and hear voices. Before you have the meeting, you want to make agendas with clear objectives so everybody knows what you're going to be meeting about. You want to share that agenda and topics before the meeting so people can prepare. You want to ask for additional topics in advance. So does anybody want to talk about anything else? You want to promote everyone's contribution. So everybody should be contributing at a meeting. And as a facilitator of a meeting, you should be asking for everybody's input. Okay. Again, meeting skills, I'm not going to go too deeply into that. We don't have the time. And you probably want to allow a little bit of time, like 5 minutes, for any other business, right? Like, does anybody have any other, for last minute thoughts or decisions, just, during the meeting, maybe? It's always a good idea to have that little bit of time at the end of the meeting to open it up. Okay, here's a very funny show, by the way. It's called Mythic Quest but they did a thing on quarantine and doing things. I couldn't get more than this, but this is like a little trailer. I'll just show it to you about what not to do in a virtual meeting.
A shirt, please be wearing a shirt.
Oh, hey, Dave.
What are you doing in a hot tub?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm in a hot tub.
Obviously, the quarantine has been tough on everyone.
I don't know what I pressed, but I'm here.
You look awful.
You lose! You're a cashed out bogan.
Poppy is being mean in Australian. Is the meeting almost over?
The meeting hasn't even started.
So, I hope you found that funny. I did. Any comments? Okay, so here's another one, virtual communication skills. Let's listen to that.
Virtual teams are faced with two main communication challenges. The first is the way they deliver messages. A good rule of thumb is to let the purpose of the message determine the tool used. That is, sending information in an appropriate format. The second challenge is that communication can easily lead to misunderstandings. Members must be able to judge the meaning of the message, read between the lines of an email, and judge someone's tone of voice during a teleconference. This is especially important when getting or giving feedback to team members. No one likes to be left in the dark, so set rules about the expected speed of response for texts, emails, or phone calls. Make it clear how often you expect team members to check their messages and what time of day you'll normally communicate. Equally important are rules about acknowledging the receipt of messages and showing that the message is understood. This predictability creates trust and confidence between teammates. You need to provide guidance about which communication tools to use and when. The tool must fit the message's intent. Things like when to make a phone call, send an email, or use the message board. Use email to schedule meetings. If a message is long or nuanced, pick up the phone. It allows for immediate clarification. Text or use instant messaging with anything that can be answered easily and quickly. Want everyone's input? Use video conferencing for creative brainstorming sessions, to strategize as a team, or for team milestone meetings. Provide guidelines for emails and chat programs too. Encourage your team to use subject lines that convey the main point of the email to avoid miscommunication and establish threads. Create standards for response time, confidentiality, tone, and message archiving. For chat programs like IM, tell them when it's okay to use them, whether they should keep records of the messages, acceptable subject matter, and how to follow up. As a manager, you need frequent contact with everyone on the team to make sure you're all on the same page. Create a plan outlining the method, style, and frequency for staying in touch with your team members and share it with everyone. Check in daily via informal email exchanges, or schedule a more formal team phone call once a week as best fits the needs of the work. Regular one-on-one meetings via video conference work well for updating team members, maintaining rapport, and aligning priorities individually. Few things interrupt your workflow more than your team contacting you at all hours for updates. Be proactive and send messages to let them know when you're not available or to update them on the project status. Technology enables constant communication, but establishing the right method of communication for the message is vital for effective communication.
Okay, so that video kind of covers similar things that I said. By the way, guys, I just want to say right now, we have the chat box, which is good. Ideally, if we do a workshop in the future together, ideally we would all have headphones, and instead of doing the chatting, we could just talk. Okay? I prefer that, but because of the time limit and because of the large number of people in this webinar and people who might not be prepared with headphones, we decided just to do it in text. Okay. I'm going to keep moving because we're running out of time. So I want to talk about why we need to have meetings and not just in text. We have communication model is you're the sender. You have what you want to say. It's in your mind, right? And so what you mean to say, you say it. But maybe you say that, and then the receiver hears what they hear, which is not always the same thing as what you thought you said, because people aren't necessarily very good at communicating, right? So misunderstanding is very, very easy. Okay? We have very complex ideas, and then to try and get it to the other person, and the other person is supposed to understand you, it's very difficult. It's amazing that we actually can communicate at all. So very often what happens is this. You're talking about, you know, the guy on the left is talking about a shark, you know, he's trying to explain the shark, but the guy on the right hears something totally different. I don't even know what that is, right? But it's not a shark. Okay. So misunderstanding is easy. Part of the reason why misunderstandings are easy is because we have different perceptions. We think differently. Everybody has a different thought pattern, and everybody has a different way of looking at things. So our perceptions are different. For example, the guy on the left, you know, we have 4, right? And here we have 3, right? And here this guy sees 6, and this guy sees 9, right? They're not wrong. They're both correct, right? All these guys are correct. They have a different perspective. So we have to understand that when we communicate. Oops, sorry, I need to erase that. Okay, here we go. We're erasing that, and that, and that, and that, and that. Okay, so to effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world. And to use this understanding as a guide with our communication with others. This is Anthony Robbins. I don't know if you know this guy. He's an incredible motivational speaker. He has arenas with thousands of people at the same time. He's been around for like 20, 30 years. He's really good. If you're interested, look on YouTube. There's a lot of videos out about this guy. Also, when you're communicating, never assume that you understand them or that they understand you, right? Never assume. Right? Very often I've seen it, people think they know, but they don't know. So ask questions, make sure you understand. And if you're telling, let's say, a junior member of your team something, and you're telling him something to do, and you say, do you understand? They're going to say, yeah, I understand. They might even think they understand. Or they don't understand, but are embarrassed to say they understand. So the best way is to just say, okay, what did I just tell you? Get them to tell you. That's the most effective way to see if somebody understands you. And when you speak to them, it's up to you to make sure they understand you. Okay? It's just like the leaders have to take responsibility. The sender has to take responsibility as well, right? It's up to you. If you don't understand what I'm teaching you, then it's my fault. I'm not explaining it correctly. I can't blame you. Okay. So I got to think, okay, how can I say it so he does understand? Okay, keep moving. So how do we communicate? We communicate 2 ways. Verbal, which is what you are saying, right? The words you are using. And paraverbal, which is how you say it. And you know, you might have had an argument with somebody one time, maybe with your girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever, and then you say, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Exactly. It's how you say it. It's most important. Okay? As little as 10% of the information is carried by words, verbal communication. Okay? As little as 10%. This shocks most people. Most people think, oh, that can't be that in the situation. But let me explain. Up to 40% of the information is carried by the tone of voice. Okay. For example, let me give you, I didn't say you were wrong, means it wasn't me, right? I didn't say you were wrong, means I communicated that in a different way. I didn't say it. Right? And I didn't say you were wrong, means like I said something else. I didn't say you were wrong. Right? So this is the same sentence, said 3 different ways, 3 different meanings. So the tone is very important. Okay? Not just the words. Words actually have a small meaning. Also, I can use the word okay. Okay, Okay. Okay. Right? One word, 3 different meanings. Okay, so moving on. Up to 50% of the information is carried by body language. And so now you begin to see why meetings, video meetings, are so important, right? Because you get to see their body language, you get to hear their tone of voice, and so you are able to communicate much more effectively. You can actually hear what's going on, you can actually see what's going on. If you just have to text, you have words. That's only 10% of the information. And furthermore, texting, you're lazy. You're not going to write all the words you're going to say. If you're talking, you're going to add way more words, right? You're going to say way more. So that's really important. And to keep that in mind, right? That's why video conferencing, especially at a time like this, when you're incommunicado, when you're not seeing each other every day, it's really important to use visual communication. Let's look at this picture. Okay? What's going on? Well, I've done this in the classroom, and everybody knows what's going on, right? The woman's angry at the guy. You know, she's leaning away from him, so she's like, you know, she's pointing the finger, you know, and she's angry. Look at her face. She's angry, like everybody knows, right? And he's like, no, no, sweetheart. No, she's just a friend. I didn't do anything with her, right? Or whatever, right? So body language, right? Body language, very powerful. Look at these faces. Here we have top left, you know, she's screaming, she's angry, she's frustrated, you know. The picture in the middle, she's looking at her love, you know, she's, the next to that is somebody thinking, she's thinking, right? To the right of her, she's surprised, but in a good way. All of these things are very clear, not a word is spoken. All right, let's get to proactive listening. We talked about listening before. I said it was very important. And unfortunately, most of us don't really listen. Most of us listen to reply, okay? I talk to you, and then you talk to me, and the first few words, I'm already starting to think about what I should reply to you. I'm not listening to you anymore. Or I'm thinking about my girlfriend, or I'm thinking about dinner, or whatever, right? So proactive listening is very powerful. You're not going to use it every time. You're not going to use it, you know, when you're just relaxing with some friends, you know, over dinner, necessarily. It would be good if you use it then too, but it's less important then. But for business, for work, it's very important. So proactive listening, show interest. That means don't look at this while somebody else is talking, right? Listen for feelings. If somebody says, if you're like, hey, how are you? And you go, I'm okay. Yeah, they're not okay. Right? You can hear it. Body language, of course, look at their body language. You know, if somebody's like this, facing away from you, they're not interested. You can see it in their body language. If they're leaning in, doing this, they're listening, they're interested. You want to paraphrase. I mean, say in your words what you heard them say to you. This allows them to say, yes, exactly, or no, that's not what I mean. And then they say it again in a different way. Right? Ask questions so you're clear about what they're saying. Don't interrupt. There's so many people I know that like to interrupt. They don't let you finish. You know, I had a partner once. I love her. She's a great friend of mine, but she constantly interrupted me, like didn't finish. And she would finish my sentences, thinking she knew what I was saying, and she was always wrong. So don't interrupt. Think about what people are saying to you. Think about it. Don't assume you know what they're talking about. And eye contact is very important. Try to keep eye contact. Now, usually in a workshop, I will go more details about that. We are running out of time. It's already past time, but we'll go a little bit further. Does everybody still have time to continue? Oh, okay. So we should probably wrap this up soon. I understand that people are actually have other commitments. So I'm going to finish with one final thing. And it's about 2 minutes long, and it talks about how you can motivate your team. It's very interesting, and I would like to finish on that, and then we'll wrap it up. Oops, sorry.
And how we maintain motivation among the people that work with us. If you've got people working with you, you want to ensure you're not an obstacle to progress. So you need to be consistent in the direction you provide. You need to provide them with the tools they need. You need to provide clear direction. Those are all important. But beyond that, one of the things we need to do is to find ways to recognize and acknowledge progress. You know, it's interesting. It's not that recognition wasn't important, because it was. The problem with recognition is that it is hard to recognize people constantly each and every day. Very hard. So we can't make recognition work for us every day, but we can acknowledge progress every day. So, for example, at the end of the day, before you leave, and before the folks you work with leave, take 30 seconds, write down, or put a file in your computer where you record 3 things that you got done that day that you feel good about. One advisor takes this one step further. Each morning, as part of their team meeting, they finish the meeting by having each of the people on their team indicate the 3 most important things that they want to do that day. Even if it's picking up the phone, making a tough call to a client that's overdue, that can be one of the 3 things. And they take turns recording it, circulating it, and they send an email within half an hour identifying what everyone's top 3 things were. That's how they end their meetings. The way they begin their meetings the next morning is by taking 5 minutes. And each of the people in the team go through their 3 things. And how do they do about it? 2 things have happened as a result of this. First of all, those 3 things have tended to get done. The moment that this advisor began doing this, because you're now creating some accountability, some peer pressure, the likelihood that those 3 things happened went up dramatically. But the second thing that happened is, even if they'd had a tough day, even if the markets had had a hiccup, people felt better because they were seeing clear signs of progress each and every day.
Okay. So what's interesting about that is, you know, it shows that the most motivating factor of all is recognition. So we talked about that earlier. Recognizing your team's work, their efforts, is very, very motivating to them. But you can't always recognize them. And so the sense of progress is a very good motivator as well. And what I was thinking was, especially when, you know, when we are apart anyway, it might be a good idea to have a meeting every day, like you was talking about, or like once a week, whatever is appropriate for your team. And then people can give an update, what they've done, and then say what they're going to do, right? And then the next time you meet, you update whether you completed that. As he was saying, usually when people stated that they were going to do something, they usually did it. And that sense of doing something becomes very motivational, which makes them want to continue doing things. Okay? I very often, I have a list of things. I write a few things on the list. I always have lists of things to do. And then even in days where, you know, I'm from home and I'm not really motivated, if I do 3 things on that list, I sometimes, you know, I'll just say, okay, I'll just do 3 things. Now, sometimes that's all I do, but very often that motivates me to do more, right? So anyway, that brings us to the end. What is paraphrase for proactive listening? Okay. Paraphrasing is saying in my own words. It's like summarizing what I understand. So in using my own words, I will repeat back to the person speaking to me. So I go down to the beach all the time, and I go with my family and blah, 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 blah. Oh, so you like going to the beach with your family, right? So that's a very simple way of paraphrasing what I just heard. Just So when you're listening, you just kind of feed back to the person whatever they're saying in your words to make sure you understand what they're saying, and they have a chance to say, yes, you're correct, or change it up, you know. No, I actually don't like going to the beach. No, I go to the beach because my family wants to go, but I don't like going to the beach, right? So it's like that, right? Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so that's at the end. Like I said earlier, with workshops, I prefer to have people talking to each other and with each other and as a group. So hopefully I'll see you again sometime in the near future. And maybe next time we can have real conversations rather than just chat. Any final questions or comments or anything?
I would request everyone to, if they want to discuss anything, we'll give 5 minutes. And you can open your mic and you can discuss, or if you have any questions, you can ask any questions. We'll give 5 minutes for this. And then we'll wrap up by 5:45. So if anyone wants to say anything, please, you can unmute yourself and you can discuss or have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Ahmad, for coming. I appreciate it very much. And thanks for your input. It's always nice to have participation in a workshop, in a class, webinar. Okay, thank you, Nafis. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask this question that I am not on a leadership role yet, but I am like 2 or 3 years in my job career. So what is your advice at this point of my career to build up good leadership skills so that I can play important roles in the organization in future?
Sorry, what should you be focusing on, did you say?
Oh, I am right now an industrial engineer in an organization. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't have any leadership roles at this moment of time in my organization, but in future, I hope so that I am getting into that position. So what would be your advice in this position to build up good, good skills to be a good leader? So what would be, your advice? Yeah.
Well, I take the, okay. So I think it should be like a life choice, all these things we talked about, we can use with everybody, right? For example, good listening skills. You can start using it right away. And it's not just that you have a team, but you can be a leader in life, with the people around you. You can start taking care. A leader really takes care of his team. I think that's the ultimate thing, right? And so you can start showing those attributes to everybody around you, right? Even though they're not in your team, you can still good listening. You can still try to help people out, coaching them. You can still ask people's opinion, right? You can still try to take care of them and show them that they're important. So all of these things that we talked about, even though you don't have a team, you can start demonstrating those qualities now, right?
Yeah.
And of course, as you start practicing that, as you start demonstrating that, you start becoming better and better, and people start recognizing that you have that, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the question.
Does anyone have any more questions? Please unmute yourself and ask your questions, please. Thank you.
Okay, regarding coaching, so there's a final question about coaching. We've already run out of time, so we're not going to do that now. But I do have a coaching module of how to coach and what to say, what to do, and what not to do, and all of that. So if you're interested, please let the people at HSPP know, and I would be happy to set up that workshop for you. Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you so much. It was really fun, and it was nice meeting you all virtually, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Also, many thanks to all our participants for your time and patience. I hope that you have learned and enjoyed today. Hope you will be able to better lead your team virtually, as well as practically deal with the issues facing many organizations today through the COVID-19 pandemic. We have another webinar on 13th June titled Virtual Selling During Pandemic. We welcome you all to join that free session too. Till then, stay strong, stay safe, and stay blessed. Goodbye.
Right,
all.
right.
Goodbye.
Take care, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.